Hi.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
Hiya.
Hello.
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 Thanks.
Yes.
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 Just one clap. Oops.
Ha. My nose is too wild.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, you all right? How you doing?
Yeah.
Okay, well, it's lovely to see you all. This is my work in progress type thing. It's called My Kayfabe Friends. It's a little bit different from what I normally do, except it's the same because it's not funny. It's more of a story. Okay, it's a mixture of comedy and therapy. Everything you don't laugh at is therapy. I know that's an old joke, so I've done my own version of it, and I call this my tale of friendship, introspection, and knob jokes. And by the end of it, you will wish there were more knob jokes. Now, are you all sitting comfortably? Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
To be honest, I don't care either way. But if you're relaxed and you're in a good space, okay, I am going to ruin that, but we'll begin anyway. Has anyone heard of Facebook?
Yes.
Of course you have. Of course you have. It was the platform everybody was talking about in 2006, okay? It actually started in 2004, but you don't know that. And by the way, I am fully aware that I'm using Facebook as a platform and structure for a show that is all about friendships. It's all quite meta.
Hey.
Very much. Actually, that's actually quite a good joke because Meta is the new name for the Facebook company. It doesn't matter. We'll get onto that. Actually, we don't get onto that after the intro. I never mention Facebook again. But that's not the point. This is the point. As of right now, Facebook claims to have 2.93 billion active users. 2.93 billion. Most of them are just comedians trying to find open spots in Southeast London. But 2.93 billion, that is quite a lot. To put that into some context, a site you all know, OnlyFans, has 230 million users. But at least when they finished using the site, they've got a little something to show for it. Is there anyone here that considers themselves an active user of Facebook? And I don't mean just to occasionally look at Auntie Jackie's holiday snaps or to stalk your ex-partner, okay? Well done, Jackie. You went to the Caribbean. Stop flaunting your privilege. And while we're here, please leave Richard. He's no good for you. I mean, does anyone actively use Facebook? Okay, you comment, you post, you add new friends. Anyone?
No.
No, exactly. Do you actually use the messenger service, even though there are far more superior products out there? No, really? So no one at all. I will add you to my list. That's still at 0. I'm hoping to meet the rest of you by Christmas. Right, okay. Now, I'm not an active user myself. I sometimes go on it to check out our local group or to book a gig, but if I possibly can, I will avoid it. Now, a few years ago, I logged into my Facebook account and I had 35 friends. And being 35 at the time, I realized that's one friend for every year of my life. And I started to think, is that enough? Is it too many? Do I really care? Do I care either about the number of friends I have or the people themselves? And what does it really say about someone who only has 35 friends? Now, because I know my audience, I've asked you to all do some homework. Now, how many Facebook friends have you got? Okay, you can put it in the chat, you can shout out, you can put your hand up. Anyone? 837. Are they really true friends, though, man?
Yeah. All people I know. All people I know.
0.
40.
0.
14.
0.
I thought I was lonely. Okay, I'm going to try and find the highest.
Nice.
Who we got? Joe, you've got 1,494 friends.
I work in comedy. I know none of them.
Yeah.
And to prove the point.
Right, Vix has absolutely underlined that for you, Joe. Thank you very much. So, to Joe and to Vix, okay, 1,107 is absolutely insane. Right, okay. Right, okay. Solidarity with the 0 gang, definitely right, really. Right, okay. So, people with the high numbers, okay, I've got something to tell you, which I know you don't know, and it may come as a bit of a shock to you. But they're not real, none of them, not one. They're just a collection of scripts on a computer, liking and commentating on moments of your life which you've created and directed to present an unreal version of events. You filtered and edited every moment of your life for an audience that doesn't even look at what you've done. They're just commenting in total disregard of what's actually there. They have absolutely no interest in your kids, marriage, job, insert appropriate activity here. And they comment in faux appreciation of something they neither understand nor have any interest in. It's like when you say good morning. You don't actually mean good morning. What you mean is, I have nothing further to add to this social situation other than to adhere to learned social behaviours. Anyway, I struggle to make friends. But I had 35 friends. Now, I don't really know what that meant, but I'm going to try and tell you how I got there. And while we're here, I'm going to tell you about a few of them, okay? So I've, as part of your homework, which is obviously great, I've asked you for a number between 1 and 35, and because I need to protect the names of the guilty, a fictional character. And as we go through today, I'm going to ask for this, and I'm going to try and read you out an anecdote from some of these people. So we'll do a few now. So if I can have somebody, if you want to put your hand up and put it in the chat, and I need a number between 1 and 35 and a fictional character. Okay, not just doing numbers doesn't help. Okay, so 33 from Hair, and let me just look this up. Okay, Data. Okay, thanks for this, Hair. Data was one of my best friends while I was at school. I was so desperately in love with him, and I never told them how I felt. And everyone I've dated since looks a little bit like him when I squint, including my partner. Okay. Right, well, next one I've got. So Moon, you're gonna have to do another one because we were at 33.
Yep,
Tim, 13. Roy Kent. Okay. Oh, brilliant. Roy Kent had to remove all my clothes and clean up shit from my naked body. Also my mother. 27. Okay, Robin Hood. Let me have a look. Okay, yeah. Huge West Ham United fan. Ginger. I didn't turn up to their wedding and I still feel guilty about it, although they're divorced now and I claim I knew. Another thing about Robin Hood, their dad once found a human arm independent from the body. He said he said it looked like a dog and chewed it off at the end. Well, that was a bad day at the office. Okay. I'm going to do 25. Joe, I don't even know how to pronounce that. QFWFQ. Okay. I went to university with them. They are absolutely terrified of the Walking in the Air song from the Snowman. They also saw my nipples once. Those two things are completely unrelated. Although I will point out it was cold at the time. So I will try and come back to that later. Okay. For now, this is part one. It's the leaf. We meet our hero as a young boy wondering about all the friends he could have, or all the friends he ever wanted to have. He was on his way to school, his first school. His mother had taken him on a bus, of all things. She dropped him off at the village school in the middle of nowhere, armed with only a pencil case full of second-hand stationery and a very questionable banana. The world was anew, an exciting expanse of opportunity and adventure, ready for a small boy to take it on with all the enthusiasm of someone who really leans into their New Year's resolution to stop being such a lazy bastard and do some exercise. I went to a small primary school. There's only 8 other children in the year and probably only about 60 in the whole school. I made a friend. His name was George. He was my best friend, and I think in all probability the only best friend I've ever had. We played together. We laughed together. We even got bullied together. It was always Christopher and George, George and Christopher, George of Christopher, something like that. We sat together. We prepared to support each other throughout all the trials and tribulations of the early primary school education, no matter what terror befell us. My first teacher was called Mrs. White. Not the Cluedo character, although she definitely gave off in the library with the candlestick vibes. In those early days, I imagine it to be the first lesson, but it can't have been. It's difficult to recall. Memories change, they fade over time. Back then, all of my experiences were downloaded onto a Commodore 64, and those tape reels, like my body, are old and decrepit now. The digital kids nowadays will never know the pain of analog dreams. Mrs. White asked us to write a story, an imaginary story about a leaf. That was the only direction she gave. And I think at the time it would have been foolhardy to give an undeveloped 4-year-old the task to construct a clear plot, rhythm, and structure for a novel with fully developed characters showcasing their own points of view and conflicts with their own existence. Because at the time I only had a very basic understanding of analogy and personification. I wanted my leaf to travel everywhere, and George, he could come too. I said, George, get on board, enjoy this wild ride of excitement with me. We can go anywhere, anytime, any place. I outstretched my hand like a young Doctor Who. I'm thinking Paul McGann with the short hair when he came back from the series, not Paul McGann from his TV movie debut. I could never live up to those luscious locks. Take my hand, George. Take it firmly. Come with me. Let's explore the universe together. And we did. I wrote such an amazing story about that leaf. It started when a gust of wind picked up its 2 adventurers and were on a whirlwind of excitement and danger. That leaf went everywhere. The pyramids, ancient Rome. It flew to the top of the highest mountains and sunk to the bottom of the deepest sea. We ran with the antelope. We flew with the birds. We dined like kings. Although given we were only 4, it meant the ice cream factory at Pizza Hut. We lived like gods. We are no longer mere mortals. The world was our creation, and nothing would stop us and our leaf from tasting every apple of every tree, every stuffed crust on every meat feast. Yes, I know that's Domino's. But it had to end. The story had to conclude. My leaf landed gently on the ocean and floated out into the dark blue nothing. It was beautiful. It was serene. It was weirdly poetic for a 4-year-old. Despite my young age, I knew it was the most beautiful piece of prose I had ever constructed, the likes of which I'm not sure I'll ever repeat. This was my magnum opus. I wanted to share it with the world. I went to hand into my teacher. George was keen too. We raced up so fast. It was nice to see the excitement and happiness on his face. I queued up and waited while Mrs. White looked at all the children's work. She seemed particularly pleased with George's effort. I handed mine in with all the pride of a 46-year-old man who can parallel park his BMW. Mrs. White looked at my work. Her face changed. It became grotesque. I mean, more grotesque than it already was, but grotesque nonetheless. Turns out George completely copied my story and handed it in already. Didn't know what to say. I was shocked. All I could hear was this buzzing in my head. Nothing made sense. How could he do this to me? Didn't even notice Mrs. White repeating the question again and again. She looked so angry. Who wrote this story? I don't know, was it Colonel Mustard? I had to stay behind after school, and Mrs. White spoke to my parents. I lost 2 weeks' pocket money for copying someone else's story. I was heartbroken. I still went back to George. He was my only friend. I needed him, and he needed me, if only to copy his work from. We went on much the same. We still played. We still laughed. I still got bullied. But something died between us that day. It was unspoken, but we both knew the betrayal was too much to hide. We continued being friends, but were we best friends? I'm not so sure. Something small was missing. It was probably just best friends from now on. Once was magical and pure was now tainted and unclean. Like that product sold in the clothes outlet in a medium-sized Buckinghamshire town. Damaged goods. It's strange that our first friendships are built on chance, because we only really meet these people because our parents had sex at roughly the same time. Not rough sex at the same time. That's although this was the 80s. And I seriously doubt that your future friendships were what your dad was thinking about when he came. At the point of ejaculation. I really hope he's friends with a young boy called George in 4 to 5 years' time. What was that, darling? Nothing. I'm just trying out some new dirty talk. And, you have to get dressed. My wife will be home in 30 minutes. No one can predict these things, okay? Not even psychics. Psychics couldn't see your dad coming. Unless your mum's a psychic. And I always think if psychics were real, Mystic Meg would have planned better. Because it's just random chance to people we meet. And that's what I call a segue into meeting people through random chance. Chrissy, I don't know who Peridot is. You might have to help me out here. But
it's Peridot, and she's from Steven Universe.
Okay. So Peridot has been in a desperate, seemingly never-ending partnership for over 20 years. She's also married to me. Sophie, 32 Tintin. Oh, I love that. Okay, so right, Tintin. While I was at school, right, they had this massive achievement boards. They had all these people's names on for being really good at things. Most of them were academic, but there was one called School Champion, okay? It was basically for the kids. It wasn't bright enough, but helped out loads, okay? I went to so many shitty school events and waited on my teachers at crappy receptions for over 2 years to try and get my name on that board, so I would be remembered for all time. Then Tintin swans in halfway through my final year, nods and winks to the teachers, and then ends up with his name on the fucking board, and I'm still annoyed about that. Also, he was 5'2" and nicknamed the Tripod. There is no justice in this. That's it for that. Here's part 2, Licorice Dreams. Aside from George, I never really made any close friendships at school. I wasn't much of a boy's boy. I never liked climbing trees, playing in mud, or learning to maintain the patriarchal society we live in today. I was generally quiet and reserved, like an 18th century poet, just without the debauchery, syphilis, and endless metaphor. I'm sorry, Byron. It's fucking nonsense. School was generally the same each day. Reading, writing, the occasional game of it. It took me 38 years to realise I was never going to be it. There was some break to the save your ass for later, it gets worse. There was some break to the monotony, a chance to interact with my peers outside of the day-to-day constraints of the classroom. It was spoken about in hushed tones, whispered quietly in the corridors of power, written clearly in a letter back to our parents stipulating the terms and conditions of the evening. The school disco was coming. A school disco, my first school disco. What delights would this event bring? I knew it was some opportunity to break out of the social awkwardness that had so far plagued me. At this point, I really didn't know how bad they were going to be. I remember it well. It was a beautiful summer's evening. I plucked up the courage to ask a girl to dance. Her name was Amy. Amy's actually her real name, by the way. It's Amy Barnes. And if you're interested, she comes off absolutely fine from this story. And at the time, completely out of my league. She was incredible, intelligent, beautiful, captivating. I remember she had a lovely water garden at the front of her house. They had a pagoda and some tropical fish. On many a day, I would dream about being one of her koi carp. Although from memory, I think those carp died in a heavy frost that winter. And if they weren't dead then, they certainly are now. This was 30 years ago. How long did koi carp live? I could have easily looked that up. Anyway, we danced. We danced like angels. We danced following all the strict rules of a primary school disco, a clear 2-meter distance apart with absolutely zero physical contact. It was magical. Well, the song ended, but my heart was alive like it had never been before. I went back to George and we toasted my victory. We drank Panda Pops, we ate sweets and biscuits and copious amounts of licorice. Oh, how much licorice did we eat? Was it too much licorice? Can you have too much licorice? It turns out, yes, you can have too much licorice. My stomach began to rumble. My constitution could not take it. I'll never know if it was the licorice or the Panda Pop that caused the explosion. In many ways, it doesn't matter. At least I made it to the toilet. But what followed was scenes no small boy should ever have to witness. Wave after wave of licorice bearing little resemblance to its original form left my body and cascaded into the bowl. I was covered in it. I tried to clear it up, but it only made it worse. I trounced back to the disco, covered in my shame. They all saw. They all knew. To be fair, many of them could smell. The look of disgust will haunt my every moment for the rest of my days. I was ushered off to an anteroom to be hosed down and pushed into smell-fitting gloss property items. I'll never forget the pants. They were green with blue trim. They had a picture of Superman and Batman on the front, locked in a deadly embrace. They were the Justice League, but there was no justice for me that day. Not only had I let myself, George, and Amy down, but also let down Superman and Batman. They witnessed me at my worst. For them, it was just part of their life, but for me, it was my whole existence. Fucking Byron!
Hey.
So I use the placards because mainly to break things up, because I realize when I can feel the dips and then I know where the jokes are in this, and I understand that when I'm writing and telling these stories, I have a tendency to fall into self-indulgence. Okay, and then I realize it's a comedy routine. It's all fucking self-indulgent. That's kind of the point. Telling stories about your own life to provoke reaction, hoping upon hope that someone likes you for it. Please like me for it. Because everyone has a desire to be liked, okay? We constantly go over our head in these moments of what we could have said and done differently. In this case, I doubt I could have shot myself differently. No, I could have eaten a few less Burry Bassets, okay? But you hold on to those memories and interactions of those people that you meet, and they stay with you even when they're not really there anymore, okay? But maybe some of them are still here. Let's try and find them. Not between 1 and 35. Okay, 27. Have we done 27? Oh no, 27. 27 Shrek for Louis. Okay. Okay, so this isn't really about Shrek, this is more about me. I once stole a cardboard cutout of Arnold Schwarzenegger from the film Terminator 3 Rise of the Machines. That doesn't date me, I don't know what does. I gaffer taped that cardboard cutout. It was 8 foot high. I gaffer taped it to the front of Shrek's door when he was asleep one night after he went to bed. He woke up in the middle of the night, opened the door, nearly had a heart attack, and punched Arnold straight through the face. His hand went all the way through. Louis, you got a lot of favourite characters. There's 2 Louis, that's fine. Okay, fine. 13, Bob the Builder. Right. Bob the Builder, actually a Chinese restaurant in Lewisham, offered me 10% off the next time I went back if I accepted their friend request. I've never returned. We move on. This is part 3, Mark and George. The incident changed me. From then on, I was just known as the weird kid and no one would really talk to me. George was still there, he stood by me. Aside from him, I didn't really have anyone else. I'll always remember him for that. And for the time we dug up a particularly detailed calcified ammonite while fossil hunting in Lyme Regis. Go team, cool. It was just the 2 of us for the rest of primary school. Days went by much the same, reading, writing, mathematics, being held back a year because I was told I was stupid, more reading, writing, mathematics. In my final year, there was an announcement. The 11 plus was coming. For those people who don't know, the 11 plus is the entrance exam for public school, which continues to separate the rich from the poor, leaving a divide that helps manufacture those who are in power to remain in power. Sorry, it's the grammar school entrance exam. It's the grammar school entrance. Sorry, I don't know where I went then. And we were all offered the chance to test ourselves academically. To the victors, enrolment in an all-boys school. To the losers, adverse psychological effects, which we hold on to many years to come as we're constantly forced to relive the perceived failures that we experience at such a young age. It hasn't affected me at all. George was going for it. So was I. The teachers didn't back me. Our head teacher, Mr. Ford, said he'd eat his hat if I passed my exam, except he didn't have a hat, so he just said he'd eat a sheet of paper if I passed. I'd prove him wrong, though. I'd show him. I'd make him eat that paper. The exam is split up into 2 sections: verbal, writing and spelling; non-verbal, a series of logic-based puzzles with shapes and pictures, because it's the British school system. George passed easily. Me, well, guess who got the highest percentage of all the applicants in the non-verbal section of that paper? Yours truly, 98%. Get in. Unbelievable. Stick that, Mr. Ford, because this boy's done good. We'll leave it there, shall we? Unfortunately, I did so badly on the verbal part of the exam paper, they referred me to a clinical psychologist for being educationally subnormal. That was it. We were split up. My only friend had gone. But strangely, Mr. Ford still ate that piece of paper, even though I didn't pass the exam. He had it with some bolognese. No pasta, though. Maybe the paper was enough roughage for him. He had some cheese on it, grated, not like an entire block of cheese. That would be weird. George went off to grammar school and I went to local comprehensive. First, I struggled. New faces, lots more people. It was hard. We had blue tops, royal blue. They changed from brown in the early 90s. They said it was to make the school more vibrant and more appealing. It wasn't. It was really so they could charge more. So those bastards at the school uniform conglomerate could absolutely stitch up poor families. Stitch up anyone, jumper step, anything. Absolute Philistines, the lot of you. Disgraceful. It's amazing in secondary school environments how quickly social groups form. The sporty kids go off together, the cool kids go after, the clever ones all gather together. And I was in this really awkward area. I wasn't clever enough to be a nerd, and I certainly wasn't the sports star. Have you seen these arms? No upper body strength. I was cast aside into a group of people which no one really wanted to socialize with. I was with the kids that didn't wash and the kids that would carry around small dead animals in their pockets. Seriously, this one kid brought in dead mice to school every day. I think he became a Tory councillor. The bullying increased. I was considered fair game and I was in the predefined loser group. And I was made fun of because I wore briefs instead of boxers. Because I once brought in soup in a cake tin. Because I pronounced it a scapegoat rather than scapegoat. Surely the goat wanted to get away. I managed to make one friend. His name was Mark. He was great. We were very similar to each other. Bright but not clever, active but not sporty, showered but only every other day. We both liked Robot Wars. We were equals. But George still wanted to play with me. Felt like I was living 2 lives. I'd be seeing George at the weekend, but I was playing with Mark in the week. I wanted them both to myself. I didn't want to share them with anyone. I imagined I was living the life of someone having an affair, not wanting to reveal my secret, sneaking around, making sure neither met the other. Eventually, though, I couldn't keep up the facade any longer. Things had to change. I finally built up the courage to share my lives together and introduce George to Mark. We arranged to get together one weekend. From memory, it was at Mark's house and we played a Star Wars strategy game. Again, go Team Cool! It went well. Everyone got on great. We arranged more get-togethers. Most weekends it was me, George and Mark doing the things that boys do. Well, nerdy boys anyway. Playing computer games and imagining what girls' breasts look like. hoping that one day we'd manage to work out the cheat codes to make Lara Croft naked on Tomb Raider. Everything was going great. I had 2 friends. 2 friends! And we were best friends. Forever. Died slowly at first. George Lee was on holiday one week. Mark had to visit his grandmother another. We missed a week here and there was fine. So it became 3 weekends and 4, then 2, then 1. The excuses became thin. I mean, how many appendices can you have out? And yes, I know appendixes is more grammatically correct for the body part, but as I've just proved, I cannot say it. I thought they just got bored with my games and matured away from the childhood interests that bind us in our younger years. I was wrong. They were still meeting, doing the same things we'd always done, just not including me. I saw them in that Pizza Hut laughing over the ice cream factory. I confronted them. There were no lies, no shouting. They sat me down and explained. I appreciated their honesty. I still remember what they said to me that day. It went like this. Come on, Christopher, you know what they say. 2's company, the 3rd's a cunt. I was alone again. At least Robot Wars was on, and my mum started buying me boxers because she felt sorry for me. My genitals may have been freer, but I've never felt so constricted in all my life. Even the smash of metal on metal didn't seem quite the same anymore. They all leave you in the end. Oh, come on, it's not a panto.
Oh, yes, it is.
No, no, it really isn't. He left all those years ago and never came back. People do leave you though, and I kind of think it's a good thing. You know, is it right to still be friends with the same 4 people that you met in primary school for the whole of your life? Does it show any growth? Can you really say you're the same person you were at that time? Are they? Let's find out. Petra, Nanny, is it Nanny Og? Nanny Og, number 2.
Yep.
Okay. My first serious girlfriend. broke up with me after 10 months, and her mum was kind enough to spend some time talking to me about it. I said to her, your daughter is just as innocent as when we first got together. So I basically told my ex-girlfriend's mum that we didn't have sex, which is pretty weird. Turns out she broke up with me because I didn't sleep with her, and she was actually sleeping with someone else. 10 months though, no one's blaming her. Let's do another one. What have we got? Who's Thorn, Mooney? Help me out.
Well, his name is Thomas, but everyone had such interesting names that I thought just saying Thomas would be boring, so I said his last name instead.
Okay, well, Thomas kind of works for me, so I'll go with Thomas.
Okay.
So, Thomas's dad was 14 when he had him, and he called him Thomas Jr. Okay. Then Thomas Jr. got someone pregnant at 15 and called his son Thomas Jr. Jr. You do not know how much I wish that wasn't true. Speaking of things that aren't true, this is part 4. Every dog. Secondary school can be quite a tough environment to grow up in. You're forever wondering what your place in the world is. Some people rise to the occasion. Some people flounder. Some people pretend to be a dog. No, just me. Fine. I'm not sure when it started. Probably around 13. I would bark at other people to communicate. I used to carry around a book with me which was called Dogs, Everything You Need to Know. I wouldn't say it was everything you needed to know. If it was everything you needed to know, the first chapter would have been, if you're a human being, do not pretend to be a dog. I think it was my parents that first suggested therapy. My therapist asked me what type of dog I was pretending to be, which at the time I felt was quite a leading question. Apparently it matters what type of dog you're pretending to be. If you're pretending to be a Labrador, it means you're struggling with your masculinity. If you're a poodle, it means you've got daddy issues. I was a Labradoodle. It was a full-on dog indemnity crisis. Sorry, identity crisis, excuse me. Now, be honest. If you're at that school and you're struggling to fit into the same social groups, are you, in your heart of hearts, going to build up a friendship with a kid who wants to be called K9? No, you're not. On my part, I suppose it was a defense mechanism designed to push people away. It actually did the opposite. People flocked towards me. The bullies and those intent on making my life a misery. My chief tormentor was a boy named Liam. Not a day would go by where I didn't suffer his wrath. Name callings, beatings, encouraging others to exclude me from their social groups. It went on for years. One day he was swinging on the back legs of his chair, taunting me, and in a pure act of defiance, I slammed my fist down to the back of that chair and sent him careening into the lockers behind me. That is why teachers tell you not to swing on your chair. If I close my eyes, I can still see the dent his head made. The adrenaline, the power I felt was incredible. I walked away from Liam like a cool guy walks away from an explosion. Although probably more like a nerdy guy walks away from Games Workshop with his new Warhammer collection. I did look. I was a hero. I was a legend. If but for a moment, because real life doesn't have cool movie endings. They waited for me after school. It started again, and this time it was worse. I told everyone I tripped, which seemed believable. I was quite clumsy. You never forget those childhood bullies and those that make it difficult to trust anyone. I had a message from someone a few years ago. Liam had died. It can't have been more than mid-30s. He was found slumped in the public toilets of the town I grew up in and died of a heroin overdose. Not really cause for celebration, no matter how I was treated. I wasn't happy about it. I wasn't angry about it either. Didn't feel any sadness. And if I'm honest, I didn't really feel a thing. But when I went to bed that night, and I lay down and I tried to sleep, I imagined the day I fought back. And I let out a quiet but satisfied growl. Every dog has his day.
Hey.
Exactly. I mean, come on, get in. I'm not condoning it, but bam, I saw him right off. And if you've ever been bullied, you've got to know how that feels. The yearning to get one over are the people that torment you. God, it was better than sex, I imagine. But I'm probably the only person that remembers that now. I know very few people from those days, okay? But, let's try and find one. How many? Have I got anyone that's not had a go? I haven't got. Can't. I've got 27. I need 2 more people. Oh, 18, the Riddler. Fucking hell. Okay. Okay. The Riddler. I used to work with him, and he reckoned he could have been a professional footballer. I didn't think he was that good at footballer, but he did have being a cunt down to a T. 17, the 12th Doctor. Okay, fine. Sorry, let me just pretend that I'm not scrolling through these, and I've not got the best ones written down. Okay, 12th Doctor. Gay, originally from Pakistan, now blind. He once walked into a prison without getting his ID checked because the prison officers thought he was a doctor because he was Asian.
Wow.
It was only discovered when he told them he couldn't do physiotherapy on the inmates. He'd give a back massage a good go. Okay, part 5, Sandy Balls. And just like that, hair was growing in places it didn't used to grow. And at 16, I was still lonely. It was hard seeing Mark every day, knowing who he was with and what they were doing and how happy they made each other. I really needed a rebound friendship, if I'm honest. You learn to live with the betrayal. But Mark's presence was a constant burning knife in my heart, and every day he was happy and smiling, loving life, enjoying being young and having friends. All I had was a sense of loss and gut-wrenching sadness and the occasional veruca because they were still a thing in the mid-90s. Despite the daily bullying and the occasional inability to spell my own name, I made it through secondary school, just. I got some GCSEs, even if one of them was in media studies. And I went on to study A-levels at the local sixth form college. I felt I had achieved something in life. I'd grown, I'd matured. I was now a man. Shit. Realization hit me. You had to wear your own clothes at sixth form. A moment of triumph for many. For me, it was a moment of almost unfathomable terror. The anxiety was overwhelming. At least in school, when you were all wearing the same uniform, you couldn't be teased for what you wore. How you wore it, what you looked like when you wore it, and the smell of it, maybe, but never the thing itself. Because the uniform, although itchy, at least provided a barrier to what should be considered the real me. The pressure of what to wear was incredible. How would I come across? Too cool, too desperate, too unthinkably sexy. I went through all the options available to me, and I eventually settled on my outfit. An outfit which I think managed to sum up my entire personality. I went to sixth form college on my first day wearing the clothes my mother bought for me. The only description I'll give you is she thought I looked cool. As a result, the teachers asked some of the more popular kids to be my friends. Imagine that, being so unpopular, the teachers had to round up some friends for you. At least they weren't being paid. They may have been being paid. The thing is, I couldn't begrudge them making a little money out of me. I had to make my own money, though. Unfortunately, there wasn't another level of sad, lonely kids underneath me, like some loser pyramid scheme. I couldn't get a gig being paid to look after the kids that ate wallpaper. Wait a minute, I used to eat wallpaper. Anyway, right, actually, side note, I once ate an entire McDonald's meal, including the wrappers and the paper bag it came in. Anyway, that's another story. I did need a job, though, and I started as a satty boy at a local pub, a sort of odd job person that got to do whatever was needed, mostly cleaning things and taking bottles to the bottle bank. It would have been fine, except that pub was called the Fighting Cocks. For the purposes of the conversation, that's chickens, not penises. Everyone knew what they meant by cocks. There was a huge sign on with a picture on it in the front of the building. Again, I must stress, chickens, not balanced. It didn't matter though. The bullies had a new way of tormenting me. I was now known as the boy that buffs brass at the penis bar. They called me that for months. For all they cared, fighting cocks might have well been known as the aggressive knobs or the hostile schlongs, or my own particular favourite, the dueling penises. I had to get another job, and I got a job working at a holiday centre. Unfortunately, that holiday centre was called Sandy Balls. I genuinely have fighting cocks and sandy balls listed on my CV. I grew up in the New Forest. There's nothing else to do apart from invent weird place names and marry a cousin. That does sound like a crass generalization for people that live in rural communities. It's not. My grandparents were first cousin, and there's another place on the forest called Burnt Balls, slightly hotter than Sandy Balls. Working there gave me an opportunity to meet people outside of college. The people I met were great. We would work together and we'd go out together. It was a camaraderie I'd never experienced before. I look back at those years as some of the happiest in my life. We always go out every Friday night. We couldn't call in sick the next day because everyone knew how much you'd had to drink and why you were skiving off. We'd always do the same route, the ship, the anchor, the jovial sailor. I didn't even live by the sea. Then at the end of the night, a curry at the Raj. Nothing mattered anymore. I had found my place. I had friends.